So let's talk about your resume. The number one mistake that I see most actors make with their resume is that they don't actually talk about their brand, or they don't focus on their brand. And you can actually put a little sentence right at the beginning of your resume that talks about your brand and what kind of roles you most love playing. And then what you want to do is actually include those specific roles first in your list of credits, the ones that are perfectly related to your brand. The more branded that your resume is, the more likely casting directors are going to actually be captured by it. Because if your resume has all kinds of unrelated stuff and it's just showing you playing different stuff, sure, it might look impressive that you have lots of credits, but you're not really showing what's in it for them. You're not showing what you can bring to the production in terms of experience with playing that particular character type. So now I'd like to talk a little bit about the specifics of resume formatting and all of that. First off, I definitely recommend you can easily go onto Google and search actor resumes and see a number of different templates for them, but make sure that your resume is formatted extremely professionally, because if it's not, if the layout is weird or it looks really low end and unprofessional, it's not going to get taken seriously. Like, the first thing I see when I look at an actor resume is what it looks like. I don't read any of the text. I'm just like, if it looks ugly or it's distracting, I'm not going to even spend any time reading it. Now, if you don't have a lot of credits, you can actually include information about your education and your training, and that's really important. Obviously, as you build up your resume and credits list, you can keep pushing the education and stuff down, but education and training is actually really important, because if a casting director knows someone that you've trained with, they're going to instantly trust you, or at least trust you more than they would if they didn't know the person you trained with. So what you need to include in your resume, anything, I'm going to go through a quick list and just include all of the things that you possibly can include. The first thing is your name and your contact information, if you have a website, any of that stuff, and also your union affiliation. That should be right at the beginning. You should also have your physical statistics, including like your height and weight and relevant stuff like that, like eye color, hair color. Those things are definitely important. And then remember, you can also include a sentence just kind of explaining your brand and what character types you most enjoy playing. Another thing, if you have it, is a link to your professional reel. Make sure that you write like a YouTube link or whatever you can do, some sort of shortened link. Sometimes links can get really long and stuff. So use a link shortener like bit.ly and it'll shorten it down to something really easy. But just make sure to include at least a link to your website or a reel, whichever one you want to include or you have. Then, of course, you want to include your largest and most noteworthy credits first that are related to your brand. Those should go at the top. And then related to education and training. Again, the biggest things, the most recognizable names. And then finally, you also want to include your special skills. Special skills are actually a lot more important than you think, because casting directors are sometimes very specifically looking for someone who's got a particular skill. So as long as you list them out, it's good. Skills could include juggling. They could include pizza tossing. They could include, having a really deep understanding of culinary, cooking and stuff. Whatever you want to put in there is totally fine. Obviously, don't put something if it's like a useless skill, like, oh, I know how to use a computer, because everybody does. But if it's something that's uncommon, like if you speak other languages or if you have special accent training and all of that, those things are definitely going to be valuable. Now, as you're writing your resume, you don't want to fill it up with, you definitely don't want to lie, and you don't want to kind of fill it up with stupid minor stuff that you're making out to be way bigger than it is. Like when you're padding your resume and trying to make things sound like super grand, and it's clear that you did not actually play the lead role in the show Les Mis on Broadway, just don't mention that. You might write, oh, played Les Mis in school, and then it's clear that your resume is more of a training resume. But don't try to pad your resume by saying played the lead role in Les Mis and then leaving out your school name, because now it's making it sound like you're lying, or they're going to be confused by that, right? Another thing that you want to do, especially for film and television, you could do for theater if you'd like, is using the word lead or supporting or series regular, those types of words rather than the characters' names for television shows and films and all of that. In general, there's only a limited number of there's like far fewer plays, especially like really well-known plays, and they're done over and over and over again with different actors, whereas there's like a billion different films and all of them are always going to have a different actor each time. So that's why for films and screen acting work, you want to, instead of including the characters' names, include the words lead and stuff, because a casting director probably won't even know who the name of that character is. Always put your most relevant stuff first. Don't include all of your film and television roles at the beginning if you're trying to submit for theater auditions, because people aren't gonna, lots of times casting directors and people, their eyes will go down the resume and they'll decide whether to keep reading based on what they see. But if you have all of your best stuff at the end, then they're never gonna get to it in the first place. So always include your most relevant things at the very beginning. Finally, a couple of other things you could do to fill up space on your resume if you don't have a lot of stuff is you can include a smaller headshot on it. Lots of times actors will hand in a headshot and resume where their headshot's on one side, their resume is on the other. So if you use a different headshot that's not the one that's on the back or your main one, you can put it up in the corner and that'll take up some space. And of course, you can also include some quotes or sort of like reviews from people in the industry. So you could reach out to a previous acting teacher and say like, hey, I was wondering if I might be able to get a testimonial or like a little quote from you that I can use on my website or resume. And then they'll write something like, oh, had a wonderful time working with so-and-so. They're extremely natural on camera and I highly recommend them for productions. Just some sort of thing like that. You could even reach out to previous directors that you've worked with, and they might write something. And then you can put a couple of little quotes on your resume, and that'll fill up some space and also give you some additional credibility. The final thing that I want to say about resumes is that you should never send out a doc format resume. You should definitely send out PDF files. Docs can reformat on different computers and sometimes they can't be opened properly. So like if you send out a doc resume, it might show up as 2 pages even though it's 1 page on your computer. When the casting director opens it, it might look like 2 pages. So I always recommend just save it as a PDF file and send the PDF. It's way easier. It's a more universally accepted document format for resumes.